take the unanswered questions and answer them at that time. So you can receive basically like a FAQ of the questions and answers. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So just as a very, very, very brief overview, but it's a nice picture to look at the types of financial aid. So financial aid, just as a whole, the definition of financial aid just means all money for college. Sometimes students will come and say, I need help applying for financial aid. And I have to ask, what specifically do you mean? Because students may mean federal financial aid through the FAFSA. Some students might mean, some private scholarships, but they don't necessarily know some of the, definitions of it. But basically, all financial aid is all money for school. We can categorize it by self-help, basically your own money, versus gift aid. And I always joke with students, we always want the money that you don't pay back. That's always our first priority, right? So let's use some of the gift aid, which would be in the form of something called scholarships or grants. That's the gift aid, the money that you do not have to pay back. Then we also have that self-help aid. So that could be in, student employment, your own funding, your own savings, or student loans. So self-help or gift aid are the two basic categories. So where does financial aid come from? So there's 4 general funding streams, and you can grab from all 4 should you be eligible. So it isn't one or the other. You hopefully want to grab from all. And I have them listed here, and they're really in order of likelihood. So the most likely source of money for college will be institutional aid, meaning coming from the school itself, usually based on merit and or need. Second would be your federal financial aid, so federal government, and that is an application called the FAFSA. Third would be the Florida financial aid. So our state of Florida has funding and money available for students, Florida residents, to go to school, and that is the Florida financial aid application, the FFAA. And then fourth, and least likely, would be those private scholarships, different organizations, in companies, businesses, things like that, giving some scholarship money for lots of variety of reasons. And we're going to go into each 4 of these a little bit more in depth. So institutional aid being the first. So this is money that is awarded from a college or university to an admitted student. So usually based on 1 or 2 or both categories. So merit. So merit aid is based on a grade point average, a student taking rigorous coursework, SAT or ACT scores. Most important thing to know for being considered for the institutional aid is that the student would need to apply for admissions by the college's priority deadline. So there are many times where a student may apply into, let's say, December, January, and could possibly still receive an offer of admission, but because a college may have a priority deadline for the scholarship of November 1st, they may not receive any of the merit-based aid, even if they may have been eligible. But if they missed a priority deadline for the merit-based aid, then they may not receive that. So I'm always encouraging our seniors to apply as early as possible of the senior year in order to make sure that they're receiving the most consideration, not only for admissions, but also for the merit-based scholarships. Colleges also could potentially award money based on household income, family size, and that's determined by the information resulting from filling out the FAFSA, the federal application for financial aid. So a college will receive the federal financial aid information from FAFSA to determine if they also want to put forth some of their need-based money to help a student's financial aid awards in order to enable them to attend that college or university. So institutional aid, generally, students are considered for the merit-based aid at the time of application, not needing a separate application or another way. So at the time of application for admissions, obviously the GPA, the test scores, the course history is already being looked at for admissions. And then they will also then say, okay, does this student meet or exceed what our averages are? And would they then be awarded with a merit-based scholarship? Not all schools do it that way. My experience is most do. There are some other colleges that will receive an admissions application and then say, based on this, we invite you to apply to our merit-based scholarships, but that's not the norm. Most students are automatically considered at the time of application. Most offers for the colleges are students that exceed the averages of a GPA or test scores, which you can look up a freshman profile on each college or university. So if a student is interested in looking at USF, I would encourage them to say, let's go into USF's website, look at what their freshman profile is. It will give a GPA, an SAT or ACT range or average. And then really the goal would be to try to meet or exceed those averages in hopes to be offered a merit-based award. Institutional aid could be renewable, which means that a student could receive an offer that would be renewable for all 4 years of attendance. So like USF as an example, their presidential award is $5,000 a year for all 4 years attending full time. So a total of $20,000 over the course of 4 years. Also, it could be offered just as a one time. You get one $2,000 award and that's it, or one $500 award and that's it for that one time. And a yearly FAFSA, the federal application for financial aid, may be required if the university is looking at need-based awards. So because the FAFSA is something that is done annually, the college would require that done annually also in order for them to consider students for the need-based aid. So looking at the need-based aid takes us to our second category for the financial aid. So this is our federal financial aid. So federal financial aid is the federal government has money that's set aside for students to attend college, and the application is found at studentaid.gov, and looks like this. This is an actual screenshot of what the homepage looks like. The FAFSA would be opened around October 1st of a student's senior year, assuming they're attending the college the next fall, and that it is done annually. So what the FAFSA is looking at are some need-based programs in the form of grants. So you see the first two here is federal Pell Grant and then a SEOG, Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Those are based on need. So the FAFSA asks a lot of questions about household income, taxes paid, family size, things like that. And so that's determining their formula of identified need. You're also applying for the eligibility for subsidized or unsubsidized loans. Now, a lot of people get nervous when we talk about loans. Taking out a loan is very different than just applying through FAFSA. All FAFSA is determining is if you are eligible to take out a loan. That's it. So you're not actually taking out a loan. It's just saying, would you be eligible should you choose to? You would want to take it through the FAFSA. And then the other pot of money through the FAFSA application is called a federal work study. And what that is a pot of money that a student could be eligible for, where then if they get a job on campus during their school year, their paycheck comes out of that fund rather than the funds from the college or the school. So those are those three federal aid programs through the FAFSA. Federal Student Aid has a great channel on YouTube that goes through very specifics how to create an account for FAFSA. What is a contributor? What required information would you need in order to fill out the FAFSA? Changes. This past year was a brand new FAFSA, so there were lots of changes. It went from 108 questions, I think, down to about 33 or 35. So that was a good move. But it is still a lot of information and you may have a lot of questions. And so reviewing some of those YouTube videos, I think would be really, really helpful. Our state financial aid. The state of Florida has funds available for students to apply for. So these are Florida graduates. Many, many people refer to this as the Bright Futures application. And I've been trying for many years to sway my students and my families away from just calling it the Bright Futures application, because you can see here how many different scholarships there are within the state of Florida financial aid application. Bright Futures is one of those scholarships. However, there's lots of other ones. And so I want all of our students during their senior year, fall of senior year, to begin applying and do that application for the Florida financial aid application, no matter whether they meet the Bright Futures requirements or not, because there's all of those other scholarships that they can be considered for once they submit that application. Here is the specifics about Bright Futures. So Bright Futures, now this is current for the class of 2026. So this year's juniors. And I wanted to put that up there just because it has changed a little bit for next year's seniors, so the current juniors. So there's 3 different levels of Bright Futures, and looking at from left to right goes from the highest award, which also then has the highest requirements, down to the lower dollar amount award and then the lower requirements. So the top award for Florida Bright Futures is called the Florida Academic Scholar Award. And so what that is, they are looking at 16 high school credits. And it is only 16 high school credits. It's 4 English, 4 math, 3 social studies, 3 science, and 2 consecutive world language courses. So Spanish 1, Spanish 2, French 1, French 2 for high school credit. And then it's recalculating that up to 0.5. And so that's important to take note of. In Pasco County, weighted courses, IB, dual enrollment, advanced placement are all weighted 1 full point rather than a half. Okay, Bright Futures only weights up to 0.5. So honors, AP, dual enrollment, IB are all weighted a half a point. So a high school weighted GPA is going to be different than Bright Futures recalculated GPA. It's just something important for students to keep in mind. So they must meet at least a 3.5 recalculated GPA on those 16 credits, 100 community service and or paid employment work hours and verification of that documented on their transcript. And then it's looking at testing, and there's 3 options, and you'll see that it says or, so they do not need to meet all 3 exams, but they do need to meet 1. It's a 1330 SAT, 29 ACT, or 95 CLT, which is a new addition this year. It's a classic learning test. Is just brand new joined this year to be eligible. It's something that students can look into as an option for Bright Futures eligibility. The exams are also what they call super score. So if a student takes an exam more than 1 time, they will look across all testing dates to choose the highest of the subsections to average that out, usually resulting in a higher average. And what the Florida Academic Scholar pays is equal to 100% of the cost of tuition and fees for 120 credits or a bachelor's degree, whichever comes first, at a public in-state institution. So that would be USF, Pasco Hernando State College, University of Florida, any of those public institutions, state college or university within the state of Florida. The next level down is called the Florida Medallion Scholar. So this is the next level down, 3.0, weighted, recalculated GPA on the 16 required credits, 75 community service hours, or 100 service hours and work hours. So if they're combining, it still does require 100 hours if they're using any work hours. They still can be added together, but it would be 100. If they're solely using community service, then they can stay at the 75 hours. And then you'll see the test score variety. So 1190 SAT, 24 ACT, and 82 CLT. Also, this is the super score as well. And what the Medallion Scholar pays will be equal to 75% of the tuition and fees for 120 credits or a bachelor's degree at a public in-state institution. But also interesting, take a look at that bottom, says, or if a student chooses to go to a state college, such as Pasco Hernando State College or Hillsborough Community College for their AA degree to then transfer to a university later, their AA degree will be covered 100%. So the first 2 years will be covered 100%, even if they're at the medallion level. And then when they transfer to university, it would then be reduced to 75% of the university tuition.
Stephanie, can I stop you for just a minute? We do have a question in the chat that asked about the volunteer hours, and they asked, do students need to volunteer for 100 hours in the 12th grade?
No, it is from official promotion from 8th grade. So basically the summer before 9th grade. So once they're done with 8th grade, up until the day they graduate. So anytime within that 4-year span, if they are providing community service or unpaid volunteer work, that can be documented. Okay. Good question. And then the third part of Bright Futures is going to be sometimes less common in certain schools, but it's called the Gold Seal Vocational Scholar. And what this is, it is a vocational scholarship. So it's for students that successfully completed 3 courses in a vocational program in their high school. So at Land O'Lakes High School, that could be culinary arts 1, 2, and 3, or child development 1, 2, 3. Technical design 1, 2, and 3. So it's a consecutive 3 consecutive courses in a vocational subject and planned to pursue a vocational program. So associate of science, a diploma, a certificate program. They could qualify for the Gold Seal Vocational Scholar Award. So this one is not for students going to a university. This is not for students looking to go to a state college to then transfer to a university. This is specifically for students going to a vocational or technical college for something more short term, like uh, uh, going for cosmetology, going for electrician, going for an AS in nursing or dental hygiene, something like that, a little bit more career specific. They could qualify for the Gold Seal Vocational Scholar Award.
Stephanie, we have more questions about
Yes,
the hours.
yes,
So one question was, the hours during 8th grade summer will be documented too. Is that correct?
correct. Once they are officially done with 8th grade, once 8th grade last day of school is over, then they are officially then can be counting service hours.
Okay, and the next question was that before the freshman year for the 100 hours?
It's total hours by the time they are done with high school, whenever that is. So if they do all 100 hours prior to starting high school, then they've met it. Or if
Uh,
they do it all during the last 2 months of senior year, it doesn't really matter when they do it. It just needs to be 100 hours by the time they graduate.
Okay, and so the next question is, it can also be 100 work hours. Is that correct?
That is correct. Or a combination of both. So they now allow them to be added together. So a lot of times we have students who are volunteering and they have a job and they can track both in order to add them together to be counted.
So it says, or only within the 4 years of high school. So I think you really already answered that,
Yes.
Robert, I think, if that's okay. And the next one is, what about work hour? Oh, okay, so we already said that. And that includes regular work at a retail or fast food job.
Yes, it just needs to be actual paid employment with a paycheck and taxes. So it can't. The rules are they can't be, babysitting for cash, mowing lawn for the neighbor, those kinds of things. It actually needs to be paid employment with a pay stub, an employer ID, that kind of thing.
Okay. The next question is, if the student took 3 years of language, 3 years of language in middle school, ASL actually, would that satisfy the language requirement?
I would, uh, in theory, yes. However, I always want students to double check their high school transcript to make sure that it's on that transcript as high school credit. We did have some issues where maybe a student thought they were taking, ASL or Spanish, and that they thought it was high school credit, but it actually was only middle school credit and not then it would not be counted. So it just needs to be visible on their high school transcript as high school credit.
Okay, one more question.
Okay.
For the top level Bright Future scholarship, will it not
Yes.
work at St. Leo even though they accept it due to private college?
It's a good question. So all schools in Florida accept it. However, if you go onto the Bright Futures website, you can just Google it. It shows a per credit amount for private schools. So what that means, because St. Leo is so much more expensive than USF, um, they don't cover 100% of St. Leo's tuition. What the award will be is basically equal to what a student would receive if they were at the public school. So on the Bright Futures website, on the state website, it will say, I think it's like $212 per credit hour. So if a student is going to St. Leo and they register for 15 credits, it's going to be $212 times 15 credits. That will be their award because that is what they per credit hour costs at a public university. So you get the same amount whether you're at USF or St. Leo. The dollar amount is the same. Hope that makes sense. Okay, if we're good, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so if we're looking at private scholarships, so these are probably, honestly, in my job, the one I get asked about the most, looking at private scholarships. I think they're a challenge because we're not really sure where to look or how to find them. They are really kind of anywhere and everywhere, and so corporations, businesses, nonprofits. I encourage students to use a variety of websites to search. The career specialists at the high school don't have a secret stash that we hand out to people we like. I always tell students, I joke that I would be so much more popular if I had that. Um, Now, we do hear about some more often, maybe than others, because that's our job within the school. But looking at different websites, just out there searching, finding ones that you are going to be eligible for. Most scholarships I find are for current high school seniors. So there are some for juniors and underclassmen, but most are for seniors because they want that money used the following year. And so they also seem to kind of come up more after the application cycle. So after, I would say, November of a student senior year, I start seeing more pop up and be more available and visible. I encourage students to pay attention to the more smaller and local scholarships, just because a scholarship for some Coast Credit Union that can only be for Pasco and Hillsborough County obviously has a much smaller applicant pool than Best Buy for the entire United States. So you have a much likely better chance of being chosen should you apply for those smaller, more local ones. And remember, all of these can be stacked on top of each other. So if you receive 3 or 4 smaller, more local awards, that would probably equal to maybe one of the big awards, but you have less likely option of receiving that. So here are some different search sites. The one that I really like to use is called Big Future. It's through College Board. Pasco County also has a program on the My Pasco Connect called Zello. And it's a really great option for students to use, not only for like college search and stuff, but there's a whole section on scholarship searching. So I'm always encouraging students to check that. There are hundreds and hundreds of websites out there. Really, it's just about you finding one or two that you like and you feel work well for you, and then regularly checking, using, and then applying for it. It's really about trying to get as many applications done and submitted as possible. The more applications submitted, the more chances you're going to have to eventually be chosen for one of those awards. I always want to caution, just had a conversation with a student today, you will never have to pay for free money. So valid scholarships will never require you money to enter or to have access to certain lists. You do not have to enter in your social security number. You do not have to have a phone call or visit with a business in order to apply. Those things should not be required. Generally, it should require an application or an essay. There are scholarships where they say, oh, it's just a random drawing or it's a sweepstakes. If you have time, sure, go ahead and apply for it, but I wouldn't wait around to be chosen for those. Really, generally, the true, real scholarships have some kind of application or essay process in order to complete that. Here are some really great financial aid resources. If you got your phone or want to screenshot this, there's just a lot of different websites that I think are great for students to become familiar with and families to become familiar with. The net price calculator is really helpful when you're starting to try to identify schools that are financially feasible for your family situation. So I use that one a lot, that net price calculator.
Stephanie, I'm sorry. Can I stop you for a minute?
Of course.
There was a question, not the slide before, but one more slide before that. Could you go to that one? And I don't know, Robert, if you have a question, but someone also asked, can scholarship combined from multiple sources like institutional aid plus FAFSA plus Florida?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. We want to. We want to try to get funding from all different funding streams and add them all together, and then hopefully the money coming out of our own pocket would be zero or a credit even. Yes, so they are stackable as much as we can. So yes, we are. I always say, however much money we think we need for college, we need more than that. So we're going to apply for absolutely anything and everything that we're eligible for.
Okay, so Robert did get his picture, so you could go back to the 2 slides
Okay.
up.
All right. So my last slide, just because we have about 5 or so minutes left, and then we can still open it up for additional questions if we want to, but then also to allow people time to log off and move on to the next. I did, if you do still have questions, you can put them in the chat now, or if you'd like to receive these slides in an email, you can feel free to email me. And then tomorrow I will just download the whole slides as a PDF and then email it out for those that request it.
Okay, we've just, a lot of thank yous.
Wonderful. Great. And so thank you so much, folks, for coming. And so we're wrapping up, and then the next session that you'd be attending will be starting in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Is there anyone else that has questions? Nope, doesn't look like it, Steph.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait, question. We have a question.
Okay. We got 3 minutes. We're good.
Must be typing. We just have the word question.
That's okay.
When do we have to start applying? Our son is in 7th grade now.
Applying for scholarships, like I said, I mean, you'll find some scholarships for 7th graders, not very many. Most scholarships are going to be for high school seniors. So usually it will begin, sometime in the summer before 12th grade starts. So once 11th grade is over, I start seeing more scholarships available, for during senior year. And again, I even see many, many, many more coming available after the priority deadlines of college applications, which is usually between around November 1st. So I tend to see more becoming available November 1st and later of senior year. But when do you start applying? Whenever you find some that are available and you're eligible for it, go ahead and apply. But just know that the concentration, the majority will be done during senior year.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, I will be on here for about 1 more minute, and then we'll close up at about 5:30 to allow you time to get to the next session. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was very thorough. What about special programs like Cambridge?
I'm not really. What's the question? What about it? I don't know what's the question. I don't know what to
Yeah.
answer.
Uh, it doesn't really. I'm wondering if they're wondering if Cambridge gets, other scholarships just because they're Cambridge. Is that what you're asking, maybe?
I mean, potentially, Cambridge, IB, advanced placement, dual enrollment, they're all weighted very high, right? So they're weighted stronger than regular courses. And so resulting is going to be a resulting higher GPA. So the fact of a student being a Cambridge student, is that alone going to necessarily? I mean, I guess there could be scholarships for Cambridge students. Yes. Off the top of my head, not that I know of, but mostly probably because Land O'Lakes High School is a IB school, not a Cambridge school. But it is kind of general overall. But there's also students who have very strong GPAs through dual enrollment, AP, and honors courses that also can apply for scholarships because it's really the resulting grade point average, rigorous courses, all of those kinds of things that is positive, for a student in order to try to get scholarships.
Stephanie, does each high school have their own career specialist? Could they go to those?
Yes,
Okay.
every high school in Pasco County does have their own college and career specialist for the student body. Yep, there's one per school.
So you might be able to call and ask them.
Yep, for sure. Okay. All right. So it's 5:30. So we are going to go ahead and take our break, allow you time to go to the next session, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. I appreciate it.